back to Paperback Portals. This is episode 2, and I have with me the wonderful Gabriella Buba. Yay. This is the author of Saints of Storm and Sorrow, and I'm going to read the blurb now. In this fiercely imaginative Filipino-inspired fantasy debut, a bisexual nun is hiding a goddess-given gift. What am I doing? A bisexual nun hiding a goddess-given gift is unwillingly transformed into a lightning rod for her people's struggle against colonization. Perfect for fans of lush fantasy full of morally ambiguous characters, including the Poppy War and the Jasmine Throne. Maria Lunurin has been living a double life for as long as she can. She is Sister Maria, dutiful nun and devoted service of Aynila's Codician colonizers. Did I say Codician correct?
You did. That was good. I made that
But
word up. So.
But behind closed doors, she is a stormcaller, chosen daughter of the Aynilan goddess Anitun Tabu. Anitun Tabu, in hiding not only from the Codicians and their witch hunts, but also from the vengeful eye of her slighted goddess. Lunurin does what she can to protect her fellow Aynilans and the small family she has created in the convent. Her lover Catalina and Kat's younger sister Inez. Lunurin is determined to keep her head down until one day she makes a devastating discovery which threatens to tear her family apart. In desperation, she turns for help to Alan Dakila, heir to Aynila's most powerful family, who has been ardently in love with her for years. But this choice sets in motion a chain of events beyond her control, awakening Anitun Tabu's rage and putting everyone Lunurin loves in terrible danger. Torn between the call of Alan's magic and Catalina's jealousy, her duty to her family and to her people, Lunurin can no longer keep Anitun Tabu's fury at bay. The goddess of storm demands vengeance, and she will sweep aside anyone who stands in her way.
That's the book.
That's the book.
Can you believe it's been out? Oh my gosh, 2.5 months now. Wow.
And how has it been? I see you on Instagram doing these talks, these interviews and so on. How has that been?
It has been such a change of pace. Like, writing is such a private, solitary you and the words, and that is it. You and the computer. And then book tour and book promotion and all of the marketing and publicity stuff that I'm doing now is just, I've not done any of this sort of thing before. So it's learning as I go and just a total different change of pace. On the other hand, like, getting to talk to readers about my story has been a delight because, as you know, with publishing, everything is under wraps for years and years and years. So now it's all out in the open, and I'm like, yeah, I can talk about that, except spoilers, which apparently I'm not supposed to talk about. Me and readers have different ideas of what spoilers are. I'm like, we open the book with all the colonizers are going to get drowned, so I don't feel that I'm spoiling the ending by telling you that I fulfill that promise. Like,
right. Yeah.
If you thought you were making out of this alive, you weren't reading the same book I was.
No. So I want to talk about your book looks. You have been inspired by a lot of, not just your own book, but also the book, other people's book covers. And you have been, is that this? Okay. So, and you have been doing, different makeup looks and so on, which, by the way, I decided, listen, I'm stealing that concept. And, it's like giving, it's cosplay. It's like, yeah.
It is cosplay. I view it as it's somewhere between cosplay and drag. I'm doing a very minimal one today.
Right.
This one is a little more inspired by the daughter's colors, more like teal and orange. Mainly because teal. I've just come back from my last round of book tour stuff in Dallas. And so everything that was blue and gold is now in the wash.
So, of course, that's why I'm wearing a lot of pearls. Pearls feature very heavily in the book. Could you tell my audience what, about the pearls?
Pearls are important. Manila, one of the reasons that I chose pearl is like the really important magical symbol is like Manila is known as the pearl of the East.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to reference that and how important pearls are in Filipino culture.
Right. And I'm gonna pull up the book, right? Because I bought the book because hey, my friend has a book. I'm going to, get this book. I'm going to read it. I'm going to enjoy it. And so I said to myself, let's do that, right? Like how bad could it be? Right? And I like just the opening salvo, just that little. I'm gonna read it aloud. Where did you go? Right. So for those of us who've had to swallow glass, where are you? Where are you? I'd been reading, so I just went.
I understand. I understand. I am
Yeah.
really proud of the dedication. I was not sure they'd let me put that in like that, but my editor was like, yeah.
To all the girls swallowing down their fury like broken glass. I was like,
We felt that. I'm
yeah,
sorry, but
no, absolutely nothing. Do you remember when we were doing book club and we did this
bone
book,
marrow thieves,
Bone Marrow
right?
Thieves? No, yeah, Bone Marrow Thieves, which was very, very heavy, but specifically, this other one, the one that I quote all the time, Space Between Worlds. You remember when we did that?
Mm-hmm.
And we were, and then something heavy hits us, and then oh my god, that is what this did to me. You had like, she's my benchmark for everything, and the twists, the turns, the not so much the twists and turns, but you went full force with not so much the gore, but I felt like there are a lot of things that took place during colonization, during things that happened to native tribes, not just in the East Indies, but also the West Indies, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
right, and it was I don't want to say very raw. It was this very authentic, unabashed take.
Yeah, I did a lot of research into like the Spanish methods of colonization, not only in the Philippines, but also across Latin America and the Caribbean, because the Spanish had a very large
Influence,
naval
yeah.
empire at that time in
Right.
history, and yeah, they were taking exactly what they'd learned in Latin America and New Spain, and they brought that right across the Pacific. And we also had encomiendas and haciendas and all of those systems of control and oppression and reaping the riches of the land back to Spain. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't
And
want to
also,
glorify it, but I also didn't want to gloss over, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
I think no, I think you did a really good job of that. And I think you showed that there was this need for individuals to try, survival is was core, right? And you see characters like Catalina who said, okay, well, listen, this is a new system, and all I'm trying to do is see tomorrow. And all I'm going to do is the best that I can with the hand that I've been dealt. And sometimes when you're doing the best you can with the hand that you've been dealt, it means that you're going to be disloyal to people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that
Yeah.
Catalina comes from so much less privilege than the other characters that we focus on in the book, than Lunurin and Alan. She doesn't have family connections. She doesn't have a connection to her culture, even to immediate family. There is no one to fall back on for her except for herself and her sister and Lunurin, if she trusts her that far. Um, and without that connection to her culture, to her family, to money, like her options are
Very, very
conform or die.
correct. And I think that we have not truly um I saw some well, I have your permission to discuss it, but I saw some critique that they didn't like Catalina's presentation, right? They didn't like how that was handled, but I think it was very like we've gone through the villainization of queer characters, but that doesn't mean we have to deify a character as well, because what we're going for is authentic representation.
I agree with
right?
that. A lot of people really don't
Yeah,
like that the sapphic representation in saints is toxic. But I think my goal wasn't so much portraying like the best queer relationship that can exist. My goal was really to show how these different characters navigate under colonization and how that affects their ability to form relationships with each other. Because I think Catalina and Lunurin's relationship is that bond you make with the people who went through like the worst and most closeted part of your life. And those bonds are really deep and can sometimes be very toxic, but I think they can also not be that way if the people that you make them with are willing to grow and change with you when the situation demands it. And Catalina was what happens when colonialism gets to you. When it is like when you have truly adopted that colonial mindset and you think that's the only way to survive this, and you let it tear yourself and your loved ones apart. And I think that that's we all know people who've done that in our lives, in our
right.
families.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
anyone who is immersed in like a society where like, yeah, to get ahead you have to embrace being as white as you can be. And there are
Even if we,
consequences.
yeah, and I think even there's like like in terms of intersectionality, we mask. I'm going to use a neurodivergence. Still, we mask, right? We code switch, right?
Absolutely. Hmm.
And it's about. Um, I read this. I think this was a therapist friend of mine on Facebook. I'm not sure if it's who, but I think it is. But it was said. Somebody said it, and I believe it. Right? That we look at maladaptive mechanisms and we see it as being maladaptive coping mechanisms, and we see it as being bad habits, but we're not seeing that it's a cope at the end of the day. It's a coping mechanism, and you can't just stop maladaptive coping habits. You have to have replaced those habits with good habits, good healthy
Yeah.
habits. And
Yeah.
you can't do that in the absence of support and structure. And so it's easy for, I don't want to say it's easy, but it was like Lunurin had that privilege to say, well, I ain't
Yes.
doing that shit. I ain't doing that. Because her father was affiliated with the church,
Yes,
right?
she could step back from the like forward fronting face that she was putting up there and say, but that isn't me. That's the face I have to be in public. And I think she was able to separate and code switch between those two realms of her life because she had a strong upbringing both with her mother's culture and with her father's culture. So she was able to step between those worlds with a grace that Catalina, I don't think, ever learned. She joined the church so early, and her experience of Aynila would have been one of poverty and probably
Correct.
coercion. I don't think that her mother was in a happy relationship. I don't imagine that. And
No.
so for her, being Aynilan and accepting that future for herself basically means accepting a terrible, unhappy marriage with someone she will hate. And whereas the church is offering her a chance at an education, a purpose in life, a future where she doesn't have to marry and have children, where she can have some semblance of control and freedom from poverty that her life as a poor Aynilan woman's daughter, she would never have had.
Should never have
So
had.
from
Yeah.
her perspective, the benefits that truly entering the church and embracing that future for herself are much greater than Lunurin's.
Yeah, and this is not to say that, and to be honest, I did not like Catalina. I did not like her as, I think if I met Catalina, I believe like I've met a Catalina. Let's go with that for starters, right? Because she was well written. She's a character you're supposed to not like,
Oh,
right?
she's horrible.
But
She's a horrible
she's
bitch. I
terrible.
love her, but she's awful.
I love her, and she's awful. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, that's how people describe. I really loved Catalina's portrayal because I saw her desperation, and that is the thing. I don't like, as much as she had the opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, she made her decisions and she stuck to it. And that's the thing with choice, though. choice means, you chose to wear a pearl necklace, but I chose to wear, earrings, whatever. It's just choice. I'm not making the choice you made. But it's about choice. And I really felt for her. I felt like what a horrible situation where it's not a real choice. It's not a real choice. Because she saw what happened to the other maid. She saw what was going to happen to her sister. Again, there were some very, very heavy, heavy themes present. You did not spare any punches at all. And I don't want to say you were brave for doing that, because that sounds, like you made some choices and you stuck to your guns and you planted your feet in the soil and you said, bitch, this happened.
And I want everyone to know, I reined myself back so much. There are people who are like, "Oh, this is such an unbalanced view of the Spanish and Catholicism. Why aren't there any good Spaniards?" And I want everyone to know that there were like specific Spanish written accounts of like actual things they did. And I read those and I went, "You know what? That is too cartoonishly evil. I can't write that." We gotta
Like,
step this back a little. We gotta tone this down.
I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the fiction that they read is watered down. Like, there's things that have happened in real life that if you were to read that in a book of fiction, nah, that's too much. They're overdoing it,
Yeah, no. There was a
right?
very specific like rebellion where the Spanish a group of Filipino shamans, they're called Babaylan in that area of the Philippines. They set up a temple. They were, not going to join the church, and folks went up and followed them. And the Spanish collected military personnel and the church and went up and killed them all. And then they burned all the bodies, and the quote from the friar was, "So that by the light of their pyres, the ignorance would be removed from the eyes of the people." And I was like, how are y'all doing over there? Okay.
What?
Are y'all, oh, like, there were so many instances like this where I was just like, that it's just a step too far. I know it's an historical account. I know it's written and like this is a direct translation. But
Wow. And also the hypocrisy,
oh, absolutely. I love
because oh, the
I love
hypocrisy
drama.
was
I love horrible people. This probably makes me a bad person, but writing about them is so fun.
so cathartic.
Yes.
Um, I just had the question. had a few thoughts going. I want to talk about Alan for a second because I loved. He was such a teddy bear,
He's
right?
my goodest boy.
Yeah,
He's a soft man and we love him.
yeah. He was just so. Oh my god! Like from the get go. Tell us about that scene, that first scene with him when he became God touched. Talk
Yes.
about. I want you to talk
That
about it.
actually was added much later. I actually only had that in reference as like a knowledge that was between Lunurin and Alan, but it was not actually on the page until my editor, like right towards the end of editing, was like, actually, that is such a cool and integral part of their relationship. That needs to be the opening to this book. And I think that Alan is just someone that like he was always meant to be tied touched. Like this is someone who is just deeply compassionate and kind and cares about helping people like to his bones. Like even at his own expense, he wants to help people. And so when he is finally named, of course, he is named Tied Touched. I
Right.
think that Lunurin is someone who spends a lot of time fighting against what her nature is, but Alan is someone who has always been at home in it.
Because um and I recognize that, and I remember, was it in our personal discussions, I think, where because he was tied touch, and he goes with it, he does what his nature does, you know My favorite character though was Alan's mom.
Yes, Dalisai. I love Dalisai. She was a joy to write. And oh my gosh, I don't know if you have the audiobook or listened to the audiobook, but
Mm.
um, Denise Cabanella, who did the voice work for Lunurin, her voicing of Dalisai was like, oh my god, I felt that in my heart. That's my Tita talking. Oh,
Mm.
I hope nothing bad happens. And of course, no bad things will happen because I wrote the book. So I was just like, oh, it's gonna hurt me when bad things happen.
The thing is, you started off with something bad having happened to her,
Yes,
right? You
yes,
started it off with something bad happening to her, and I feel like that made Alan's character even more compelling
yes.
because we think
Alan
he's this
has that
easygoing,
trauma.
not just that he's this easygoing person, but he's for his mom. He was such a little boy when all of this happened, when his dad exiled his mom and did what he did and physically harmed her, and he traumatized his own son,
Yeah, yeah. And I think that
right?
trauma is like really deep in Alan's character. Like,
Yeah.
I think for him, it was like two part. It was watching the destruction of the original Tide Touch healing halls on the Delta before the Palisade was built, and then watching what happened to his mother. Like, that two part is like really deeply a part of him. He chooses to not let it make him bitter. But I think it does make him afraid of what standing up can lead to. And that's
The,
something that he has to overcome as a character.
Yes, and it makes his kindness, it makes his gentleness, it makes all of that practically a revolutionary act where he helps all of the people that have been cast out by the church, right, for things that are not
Mm-hmm.
their fault. Because
Mm-hmm.
imagine, oh, I can't, like, there's part, like, I wish I could start talking about Inez and the stuff that happened to her as a result of a priest doing something to her, and then they are punishing her because of what happened. It's like, no, if he didn't do that, then she wouldn't be hungry. Then she wouldn't be sick. Then she wouldn't be tired. This man took advantage of her.
And it's something that we have not left behind, unfortunately.
To this day, there was
To
a
this
conversation
day.
I've had between last night and this morning on FB where friend of a friend, were in the comment section, and she said that when she was assaulted by someone in the church, that um, she was dragged in front of the church and forced to apologize. And she was assaulted. So
Absolutely.
I
And I think
said,
that
okay, and
that's
what
a
about the
mentality
person
that
that
is
was,
really deep in a lot of our religious communities. That it's
yeah,
always the woman's fault. And on most of the time the fix is that, hey, why don't you just get married? That'll fix it.
marriage fixes everything.
And marriage fixes everything.
And like I said,
Which is a
they
funny
made
thing to say, given I do set up a marriage of convenience in this book that does fix
does
everything, but
fix. Yeah. I don't
it
think
only
the
works.
marriage wasn't I don't think the marriage so much fixed everything, as much as it fixed the public relations.
Yes.
Because no matter what she had done, otherwise, if they had, then
Hmm.
then you know, Alan would have helped her every single day, pining over her, right? He would
And I
have been
think it
pining
was
over.
very much, for me, it was part of playing the game that the Codicians have put them in. Like, okay, so you can kill someone if they're a ward of the church without any consequences. What if we changed that? What, because you don't view women as real people with like independent rights and thoughts, what
Yep.
if we play with the legalities that you've put on the table
I'm just playing the
to our
game.
advantage?
Oh wow. There was a conversation that I was having with someone else, and they didn't like the I'm trigger warning, pregnancy and termination and so on. And they said that they didn't like abortions and, They're skeptical of the term. They're skeptical of miscarriages because they're considered spontaneous abortions, and they didn't
Mm,
understand it when they first came across it, like in their textbooks and like in their biology textbooks and so on. Because at the time they thought, okay, well, I'm running errands, I'm paying some bills, I'm picking up, some Starbucks, might as well get my ears pierced in abortion. I'm just here doing stuff, might as well. And that was a thought. They just never liked the term. So I said, hey, how about instead of recalling miscarriages, spontaneous abortions, how about we call abortions scheduled miscarriages? And they're like, but again, it's all about. I love how they played with the as unjust and hypocritical as the laws were, that they found ways in and around and anything to survive. And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was just such uh, a raw, authentic look at what took place.
That was actually something that I lifted, not directly, but the spirit of it was something that I lifted from a lot of my readings about mixed and mestizo um, actual historical people, both in the Philippines and in Latin America, because there were different rules for different classes of people. So the
Right.
Indios, different rules applied to them, yet different rules applied to the mixed case, and then completely separate rules applied to the ruling caste of Spaniards in all of these colonial locations. And there were records of mixed folks who would, particularly women, who would move through society based on their marriages. Their entire way of presenting themselves would shift based on their marriages, based on their needs at the moment. So there was this fascinating tax record I ran across of this woman who, at different points in her life, like took on three completely different castes and tax burdens in order to run this business that she ran. And I was fascinated by that idea of like taking advantage of how you're seen as in between and then shifting it by changing how you dress, changing who you associate with, and all of that to shift where you are in like society's view. And I wanted to capture some of that in Saints.
Yeah, yeah. I love where I loved it when Lunurin was like, oh, no, 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 I am Alan's wife. I am, I am this title now. And yeah, I could stamp that.
Yeah,
I can stamp
absolutely.
those permits to that. I'm his wife.
I'm his wife. Anything he can do, I can do. We're basically the same legal entity now.
Uh and I love when she's like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know, I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. Because if I'm just a girl and I can't do these things because I'm just a girl, then I'm just a girl when it's
Just a
convenient
girl.
for me too. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah. Um, you have some you did have like a lot of disability rep throughout the book. From
Yeah.
Alan, his mom, and a lot of it was inflicted by the Codicians.
Hmm.
So we are the same legal. My husband is saying we are the same legal entity. Thank you. You know.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that one's a pet peeve of mine about fantasy world. If you present to me all of these fantasy worlds where you tell me, oh, there was this terrible war and so many people died, and no one had any actual lasting chronic like injury and illness, I don't believe your fantasy world has any consequences. It's fake now.
Yeah.
And I didn't want a world in which there were not real consequences to the effects of colonization, to fighting against colonization. And so I gave my characters real, lasting, chronic injuries and disabilities. Anyone who's lived in a only 20-year-olds think they're immortal and will heal from this perfectly. anyone over like 25, 30, we know you mess up one thing one time, you're going to be feeling that now
For
forever.
3 to 5 business years minimum. Minimum.
Exactly. Like I injured my lower back, 12th grade. Oh gosh, how long is that now? Woo!
It's been a
14
minute.
years ago. It is still with me. I'm still doing physical therapy about it. Like that will be with me likely until I can no longer walk.
When we were prepping between our initial conversations, when I invited you and when you said yes, so today, Imani Barberin on Twitter, it's been said before, but I just thought it was fortuitous that she said what she said coming down to this when I was, um, it's a reminder that disability can come for everyone. Disability can happen at any time. Everyone has the potential to become disabled, right?
Yes.
And especially, yeah. And
As
so
someone with
you have,
chronic illness that only like manifested as an adult, like I really feel that. Like the healthfulness and youth that you had in your 20s, like at any moment that can be taken away and it will impact how you exist in the world forever. And I think there should be more
correct.
representation of that, especially in these very high stakes worlds that we set up. Everyone is not coming out of this completely unscathed.
Yeah, that survival takes its toll, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Like we
survival
made
takes
it
a toll.
through, but at what cost?
uh, um we had spoken about Alan and his and the way Alan or Alon.
Mm,
How does Prince Zuko pronounce it?
it's Alan.
Alan.
Long O, like it's the word for wave in Tagalog. It's also a name. I don't pronounce it correctly all the time, so I can't be
Alon.
mad at anyone else. But it is Alon.
Alon. Okay. What a lot of people. Prince Zuko narrated this book.
I mean, come on though. I had a Filipino elemental magic man who's disabled. You cannot tell me that Zuko can see out of both eyes anymore. And he's got a father with impossible demands that he's going to kill himself to make happen, and a mother in exile. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if we got the Dante Bosco? And then I did it.
I remember when I found out, because I found out through, oh, my reconnection. I'm reconnecting. Yeah, so I was reconnecting. What is going on? What is going on?
Technical difficulties.
Okay, so I think we're back. Yeah, so I
Oh,
remember finding out through, well, our grapevine, right? So I found out, and I found out when I was allowed to find out, and I said, Miguel, sit down, sit down. Said, listen to me. Yeah, so I upgraded some of my equipment, but not all of it.
I
What is
understand.
this?
I'm on a borrowed setup
Okay.
myself, so there have been glitches. I understand.
Okay. So yeah, he was so excited. He was so excited because we are huge Avatar fans.
Me too. My husband as
Oh my
well.
god.
We have the whole Legend of Korra box set and the original Avatar too.
When I met my husband, my stepson had not yet been born when Avatar came out. But when I met him and met his stepson, met my stepson, sorry, not his stepson, in a way to reconnect, he said, Auntie, what are some of the old cartoons you used to watch? So I set him up quickly with, Avatar, The Last
The
Airbender. We
best
did,
one to start with.
yeah, we did Korra when it came out. We did, um, How to Train Your Dragons. I mean, Miguel and I walked down the aisle to one of the songs from How to Train Your Dragon, of course.
Oh,
Right? You know this song that plays when they drag Astrid flies a dragon for the first time.
yes.
It's called Romantic Flight, and that's when I walk down the aisle too. And I'm there, the music starts to play, the DJ is
Oh.
playing this, it starts to play, and my stepson is in it. I know this. I could do no wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, I could do no wrong. I could do no wrong now. He was like, I know this song. He said, did you pick this because you I was like, yeah, because we all love that series. Right?
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, so these are the influences that we had, that we've tried to instill. These are the values we've been instilling in our children. And speaking of disability rap, and Avatar
Yes.
also did
I
really
really
good.
loved the amount of disability rep in Avatar. I believed that in that world, like, actions had consequences.
Not just that, there was also not so much. There was the workarounds. There was the, okay, well, these senses are gone. I've never had sight. What do I have, right?
Yes.
And I think it was also the emotional aspect of it, that in Toph, being very self sufficient,
Mm-hmm.
right? It came at the cost of self-centeredness, but she learned to be a part of the team. So even though she was technically overpowered, she still had her own personality. She had her own growing up to do
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah. I love that for her.
right?
She was one of my
Yeah,
favorite characters.
and I felt like it did really good, especially with Alon's mom, right? I love
Mm-hmm.
that. So what was it? Yeah, there were other characters throughout the book as well that had disabilities. For example, Alon himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was another character,
Kawit.
and I'm sick. What's that?
Kawit.
Yes, and
I'm so sorry.
it's like
I feel
something.
so bad about that one. You have no idea.
Oh my gosh! But I mean, the thing is, things happen to people. People get into accidents. People are born with disabilities.
Yes.
And they go through life. They're like, well, I can't do this, so let's do that instead. Or I'm gonna need this, so let me just build my doorways like that instead. You know, and
Absolutely. And I wanted a world that accommodated for that, for living on.
yeah. And like people get depressed, and all of these things were just, it was realistic. Like, yes, it's a fantasy, and a lot of things happen in fantasy, but there was also that emotional response that, yes, it's a fantasy world, but people are still gonna people. Humans gonna human. What would you consider among your favorite parts of writing this book?
So the like crystalline scene that I was writing towards was that moment when Alan walks in and Lunurin is in a full, beautiful bridal getup with just blood pouring down her front. Like that, I had that scene in my head the whole time I was writing, and I was writing to get to that scene. And it's such a fun scene.
It was so
Also,
good.
what follows, I call it my wedding at Bernie's. Do you know the movie The Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's my wedding at Bernie's. I just love this moment where it's like, okay, pause. What have we done? How do we fix it? Let's do it together. And it was such a fun scene to write. I just like that mental image of this like beautifully done up bride, like flowers in her hair, the beautiful silks, just drenched in blood, having bitten someone's fingers off. And Alan like sees that and he's like, well, now I have to marry her, obviously. And everyone else in his life is like, are you sure, bro? And he's like, no, yeah.
No, no,
I
no,
have
no.
never been more sure.
Oh my god. It was supposed to have been a marriage of convenience to save Lunurin, and he's like, it could be convenient for me too because that is a bad bitch. I remember reading that scene. I was reading on my phone, right? 'Cause I have my Kindle app, and I was like, Miguel, and he's read bits and pieces because I have
Uh-huh.
been harassing him. I've been harassing him, right? And yeah, what is going? Okay, I need to come right. Good.
I think the
Uh,
audience reactions are a little bit delayed to the mainstream.
I'm also they've changed this. I used to use Restream before, and they've kind of changed their setup. So I'm navigating. I'm having my teething problems, but I'm learning. I'm growing, becoming better.
I love it.
Right. There was that. There was a scene. There was a wedding night scene, of course, because how you gonna have a wedding? Another wedding
Uh,
night, right?
Only one bed is
And
one of my favorite tropes. And marriage of convenience and arranged marriage is also one of my favorite tropes. Like, there was no way that wasn't happening. Alan is like, I am a good person. Obviously, that is not happening. And I was like, haha, incorrect.
and she's like, no, we're married. We need to do married things, right? So let's do some married things. He's like, no, not until you want to. And it's like, but.
You don't understand the amount of time I spent writing that scene where I was like, okay, the maximum amount of emotional damage that I can inflict is if they get together before they're ready. And these two assholes would not stop crying. And I was like, stop crying and kiss already.
Yes.
And I'm like, if you get together now, then like the amount of emotional trauma that I can inflict later is so much higher. And they were like, no, it's a bad idea. We're not emotionally ready for this. And I'm like, God damn it. Alan, why are you so emotionally aware? Could you be less? And meanwhile, Lunurin is like, I know how to secure my place in the world, and that is by playing my role to a T. And he's like, that is fucked up, ma'am. That is messed up, and if no one's told you yet, I will be the first. I love that for them, and it worked out in the end. But when I was first writing that scene, I was like, yeah, I'm going to inflict maximum emotional damage on these people because Lunurin is coming at this like, I have to establish myself as his wife, and he cannot be able to get an annulment. And Alan is like, oh, she loves me.
And the thing is, she did it was clear that she loved him right from the get go because this is why Catalina was so jealous because
Catalina can see it. I think
yeah,
anyone who's in a room with them can. They're just
yes.
like, get a room already.
I think Catalina saw it before anybody else saw it, and I think she saw that Lunurin loves Alon long before anybody else saw it because she trusted him. Trust was the one thing she never ever had, right?
Yeah.
Trust was more precious than pearls. And
Absolutely.
the only person she trusted was Alon. And that pissed
I think
Catalina
it's so telling
off.
because there's a lot of Lunurin that Catalina does have, but I think every time throughout their entire relationship that there has been a real problem, Lunurin pulls back. Lunurin fixes it herself. If she can't fix it herself, she's going to Alan. And I think that has been slowly driving Catalina up a wall. Like, I feel for her. Like, can you imagine?
And the thing is, I think because they're both they're both God touched, for example. I think I'm using the wrong term. One was
They're both
tied.
God's blessed. He's tied
God's
touch. She's a
blessed.
stormcaller. It's confusing. The terminology got difficult.
Right. So yeah, so she's God blessed and he's tied touched. And so they had that in common, right? And because Lunurin was so self-sufficient, that this was a close that her reaching out to Alon was like it was just it seemed not so natural to Catalina that she saw Alon as almost like that she thought that Lunurin felt like Alon was an extension of her, because there was
Hmm.
something that they had that Catalina could
And she's so
have. She didn't
outside
even know
of
what
that dynamic. She has
right.
never been raised in that. She doesn't probably even know anything except what the church has told her about those pre-colonial traditions. And so it's something she can never grasp, because to Lunurin, I think it's second nature. Like, she is a stormcaller. Her essence is vengeance. If the problem that needs solving is not kill them, then you go to a Tide Touch. They help people. This is who they are. This is what you do. This is how she's been trained and raised. So to her, I think she was able to lie to herself for a very long time. She's like, of course I'm not in love with him, but this is what
But
you do. This is who I can rely on, and I know I can rely on him. And to Catalina, this is just like, I understand Catalina's point on that one. She's just like, fucking hate that guy, okay?
I don't think there was anybody that hated Alana as much as Catalina
Oh,
did.
oh, she hated him. And he's always like, I'm helping. Don't I get any slack? And she's like, absolutely not. I can see how you look at my wife.
You want my woman. That's the only.
I see. This is not altruistic on your part. And he's like, I swear to God, it is also altruistic on my part. And she's like, watching you.
And then they get married.
And then they get married.
It's like, you bitches have
Oh, the
been
mess. It's like a
gaslighting.
messy love triangle. That's what I love about it.
Oh, I loved it. I hated it for Catalina. I'd hate to be Catalina in that role. And
Oh,
the thing
I
is,
know. I
she's
was
trying
mean to
so
her.
hard. She was trying so hard to save Paul Lunurin.
She was.
She tried so hard. Um, and so like the pearls made up her mutia,
Hmm.
right? You wanna walk us through that a bit?
Yeah. So traditionally, mutya is like a word for talisman. It's this magical pearl that you can accomplish. You can um, gain in traditional stories. Usually, you can like win it from a banana flower under very special circumstances. There is a questing element to this. But I wanted to tie pearls and pearl diving and pearl culture back a little more closely to like historical pearl harvesting practices in the Philippines. And so I chose pearls because I wanted it to not just be, so this isn't just what like special people get. The most important part is that you dive and you come up with an oyster and you have that mother of pearl to be made into your mucha, because this means that you're part of the community now. You are old enough to like take your role in the community, to be named to the gods, for them to know your name and you to know theirs. And then there's this additional layer that, yes, some people will find a pearl, and those people have been chosen for more purposes, greater power, all that. But I wanted there to be this community aspect where everyone dives and everyone has their mucha, and this is a symbol of their connection to their land, to their environment, and to their gods. Because
Right.
pre-colonial beliefs were very much more in tune with nature. There are nature spirits. There are spirits of the land and sea and sky, and remaining in harmony with them is very important. And I wanted that to be reflected in the setup for Saints.
And so I'm wearing some pearls,
I
right?
love it. I love it.
Thank you. A little cosplay for my girl, like fan art, but on my face.
Oh,
My neighbor, Petal Patrick, she said, why, look some pearls. Why don't you do it like bubbles? Since they have to dive for the
ah,
pearls. And I thought it was such a brilliant concept.
I love that.
So
I had so much fun with my pearl metaphors in the book. Oh, they were
it
delightful.
was so good. Yeah. And I like that you used like the weather as, to relate to her emotional distress. right? And she's so
Mm-hmm.
afraid to letting her hair down is such a privilege, because if she lets her hair down, she's gonna doom all of these people.
Yes. I loved
Mm.
that aspect. So it was based upon Estrella, and I'm gonna get her last name wrong, Bangot Botswan. She was an Babaylan from Iloilo, and she was known for ending droughts by letting down her hair. And there are so many other stories about her. She's one of the most famous Babaylan. And I based Stormcallers and their abilities on her. And so that's where Lunurin gets that aspect of her hair holding her power.
And the thing is, like repressing, like letting your hair down is it's a metaphor known, for
Absolutely.
relaxing. It's for letting your hair down is symbolic of being yourself,
Hmm.
your truest self. Yourself that you don't have to perform, basically, right? And so she is a storm caller, right? Letting her hair down is calling upon
You will
the just.
call storms.
Yeah,
This will be what
it's
happens.
just who you are. Like, we don't heal. And I thought, like, because women are so expected as healers, and to be loving and so on, that they forget the flip side in multiple cultures. For example, Hinduism, one of the world's oldest religions,
Hmm.
Kali, the goddess, is known for her rage, right? And
Yes,
so seeing that as being part and parcel of, um am I reconnecting? You hearing me or
I
no?
can hear you.
Okay, good. It's just that my connection is lost, so I just, right. And so it's also part and parcel of who she is. And it takes so much strength, so much to keep her hair up, because it's just to let her hair down, kill some people, and just move on about her day, right? Like,
Hmm.
murder solves her problems, just you know.
I think that's the one thing I love about Lunarin so much. There's always a clear, shining line that she can see with like perfect clarity. And it's always the easiest solution, even if it contains the most murder. But she is always aware of it. And I wanted a female character that leaned into like she is violence and anger. And despite that, she spends a lot of time fighting against those instincts in order to be in community with people.
And then to save her community,
Then
right?
she leans into
She
them.
lets, yeah, it's like, okay, if that's who I have to be, that's who I have to be, right?
I do remember
As
in an early version of this book, someone read like the first third, and they got to the scene with Inez and Alan's mother, and they said, "Oh, so from this point, Lunurin is going to learn better ways to use her magic for healing and bettering people, and she's going to grow." And I was like, taking you gently by the shoulders. That's not what this story is about.
that
This
focus.
story is not about being a better and
This
bigger
isn't
person.
Katara. This isn't Katara.
This this is a story about a goddess who wants you to drown them all.
No,
Sometimes that
this,
is the answer. Un- so,
unfortunately, as Jay-Z once said, so don't let the necessary occur, right?
and
And
I
they let
think
the
Alan
necessary
points
occur.
out that there are so many points where like we could have done justice, but justice is not an option. So this is what we have
Yes.
left. Like justice could have been done at so many points and it would have been like perfectly within all of our abilities. Like the church could have chosen to make DeSoto stop and punish him for what he was doing. And there are so many points like that. And at every point, the Codicians choose the worst option. And so at some point, you also only have the worst
The
option
worst
left.
option left. Now the book ends with Aynila being liberated from Codician control.
Mhm.
But you're talking about the Spanish Empire, and again, they had at one point in time they had one of the largest empires. So,
Yes.
how does the story continue? Would you like to tell us? Because
This
we are
story
almost at the eight.
continues.
We're almost at the hour mark. This is supposed to be a half an hour show.
Oh my
BTW.
goodness. We got chatting.
I ever done 30 minutes. I don't know who I'm fooling, right? I don't know who I'm fooling. And you know what? Maybe if I get a lesser book, I'll probably do the half an hour. That book hasn't appeared yet. It is what it is. So, could you tell us what happens? Is there what is the future of Aynila?
Absolutely. So, in Daughters of Flood and Fury, which is book 2 of the Stormbringer saga, I love my series title, can you tell? The Codicians have returned with a flotilla of galleons in order to retake their Pearl of the East. Lunurin's father has been named bishop over all of the Codician holdings in the East, and if the Codicians don't have holdings, what is he bishop over? So, we will get to see Alan and Lunurin try to bring together their people in order to keep Aynila free. And also, I'm making it up to Inez. I'm so sorry for everything that I did to Inez. I'm making it up to her. I promise.
Do you have a blurb handy that you can read for us?
Blurb. Give me a quick moment to Google here. The Goodreads is up, and you can add it on Goodreads.
You can put it in the chat, and I will put it.
Let
Yeah.
me pull that, drop it in the chat. How do I drop things into the chat?
There's a private chat
Private
to
chat.
your
There we go.
right.
Okay, so the blurb for Daughters of Flood and Fury, Stormbringer Saga number 2. In this powerful sequel to Saints of Storm and Sorrow, Lunurin and Alan struggle to unify the archipelago against the returning Codicians, while Inez embraces her power and makes new allies among the ruthless pirates of the South Sea. Several years after the defeat of the Codicians in Aynila, Lunurin and Alan are fighting to solidify their alliances across the archipelago, but petty rivalries, suspicion, and conflicted loyalties threaten to undermine their efforts. Inez has been training as a tide-touch healer with Alan, but the gentle side of Amansanay's gift does not come naturally to her. When she hears rumors that her sister Catalina is living among a group of missionaries on a nearby island, Inez embarks on a dangerous journey over the sea. Aboard a pirate ship, she meets Umali, the boat's fierce fire-tender captain. Umali has never been gentle, and she burns brighter than anyone Inez has ever known. Lunurin and Alan are desperate to follow Inez, but the Codicians are closing in with a powerful armada to retake Aynila. To stand any chance, Lunurin must unify the disparate factions of her forces before the festival of the eclipse, when the world's magic will be at its strongest. 3 goddesses stand behind them, but without human allies, even that power may not be enough to save their islands and the people they love.
Wow.
That is
Oh
book
my
2.
goodness. Let me see share screen. I just want everyone to see. Yeah. This
Isn't it
is
beautiful?
it's beautiful. There's flowers and shit. I'm gonna get me some flowers to put in my hair for. You're always welcome here, right?
I
You're
love it.
welcome here
I love it.
anytime, right?
When I have stuff
So
to say.
that goes without saying. So my pre-order is in, of course.
I appreciate
Of
the support.
course.
I appreciate the support.
And I appreciate the book, right? Because I love you. I
I'm
love
so
your
glad
book.
that it resonated with you. Like, talking with you about this is great because I don't get to address a lot of these little details in a lot of the more surface level interviews I do about this. So this has been really lovely.
And it's been obvious that we're friends, but I do want to state for the record why we're friends, right? We're not friends and you started to write a book. I met you in writing communities. We're
Yeah.
in writing servers together and so on. We're friends because you write, right?
Exactly.
The fact that you're a great writer is it's a friendship of convenience for me that I have access to all these
I feel like
Wonderful
writers grow
writers.
in community and we can only do it together. Like writing is so solitary. I felt like I had stagnated in my ability to grow as a writer until I really reached out and found really vibrant communities full of folks that write. So it has been such a wonderful thing for me to get to, you know, have these communities, be in community with you.
Thank you so much. um, well, this is. I want to say this is all the time we have. We could talk forever, but I'm gonna stop right there. Next week, same bad time, same bad channel. I will be chatting with my good friend known as Julie Mango on social media, and we're just gonna be talking about some books that we've been reading. Right? Just share some books. So you stay tuned here, and it's gonna happen sooner or later. You're gonna find your best new author. You're gonna find your new favorite book. So stay tuned. And I'm gonna end the stream now. Have a good